right, in case nobody hasn't been seeing, Maxpeeding Rod's had a pretty big presence lately on YouTube, other YouTubers themselves, on Honda Tech and all kinds of things. So Jack was the individual that reached out to me, asking if I needed anything, and there wasn't really much that I needed for myself or that I could find that I needed at this moment. So I have a local friend that's eventually going K-Series, but for the time being, he could use a new shifter. So I asked Jack if he could ship us a shifter, and we'll give it a whirl and see what it's like, and here it is. So I'm not going to get into deep details on how to take your shifter out. We will kind of film the install a little bit of it, but for the lack of better words, it's just literally two 10 millimeters underneath there. You can shift your bars out of the way, and this is what you're presented with. All right, so we don't have like probably the proper grease to use, but we're just going to use some red high temp grease for the time being. It's better than probably having nothing into it. The little white nylon piece is actually still, you can still procure it from Honda itself. But again, the shifter will be changed out at some point, so it's really not worth it to, for us in this case, being a budget setup here, just to waste money on it. So the little brass ball you can kind of screw up and down to adjust the height of it. We're going to put it all the way to the top, and we're going to start with that. And we're just going to see what the throw is. It comes with pretty much everything. It comes with an Allen bolt, some little spacers that go in there. Nothing crazy. Again, it's a pretty straightforward install, but we're going to put this all the way up the top. Like I said, we're going to see where the throw is, and we'll adjust it from there. So together assembly, pretty self-explanatory. When you slide this up here, there's going to be like a little groove that kind of goes around. And now we're just going to feed it through the top, and we will bolt it up. All right, so the top view, you're going to have where my finger's at, and then where my thumb goes, there's another bolt hole there. It already had some kind of fastener that's sort of like welded to it, but in this case, the car being a little older, and yours probably the same maybe, that didn't want to lock. So we took it out all the way, and we just threw some 10 millimeter bolts in there. So looking from the top here, you can see we've got a 10 millimeter here and a 10 millimeter here. Your install, like ours earlier, it had basically a fused kind of stud that was there, but they sort of broke loose just from being old and brittle. So we just replaced them with two 10 millimeters, and to be honest, it's probably easier just to take them out now. Those little collars that come, kind of slide those in the edges there. And what that's going to essentially do is sort of take up the slack. You'll have one on each side. All right, so we've got both collars in now.
There we go.
Oh, does it actually fit? Oh,
yeah.
It's actually a pretty nice fit then.
Yeah.
Okay, so once both those little collars are slid into the bearing there, it's actually a pretty nice fit between the ears. And it's pretty self-explanatory from there. You're going to use that bolt like so. All right, so you can see right there, we just put a nut and a washer. The nut is what the kit came with. It also came with this spacer. This may be for, I don't know, EGs, EKs or something, but on this EF sedan, it doesn't do us any good really. It just kind of takes some extra slack there, but who cares?
Is it, is the inside of the car fine?
Oh God, what happened?
No, I'm just asking.
Oh. Yeah?
Okay, cool.
I was like, oh my God.
I'm like about, I don't know, 3/4 of the way there.
I left you, there's like a fire then. I feel so bad. So this piece goes in. I've actually never seen this piece in any of the cars that I pulled apart, so it's kind of cool. Here it is all wrapped up. It's got this giant brass 500-pound weighted shifter on it, but this is the shortest throw that it is. The clip of the grinding you saw a second ago, it's that weight on the back of the actual shift rod. Since we lowered it down as low as it goes, it basically, when you go into reverse or fifth gear, that weight would essentially bump into the exhaust. So we just kind of lopped half of it off. There's not a ton of it, but it just required this much. It was nothing against the actual shifter. It's just because we chose to lower the shifter all the way down in the car. So something to be noted of if you do lower it down all the way. And again, the spacer that also came in the kit, we just ended up not using it. Just was unnecessary, but it might be necessary on an EG or an AK or something. All right, so something else I'm doing, if you followed, I've been chasing my brakes a little bit. They do stop the car, but after driving Matt's sedan, and just even the S2000, the brakes just don't feel that great, and I've chalked it up as maybe just an old car, which is originally why I upgraded the Willwoods, but they still just don't feel like they should be where they're at. So I am changing everything to EBC yellows, front and back. So before, originally I ran, when I put the Willwoods on, I ran BP10s, which is what they came with, and just Brembo, you know, standard OEM replacements in the back. Still didn't feel that great. Bled them again, changed from a EX master cylinder back to a CRX master cylinder and SI cylinder. And then I went up to BP20 pads in the front to make it a little more aggressive, but I kept the back. So I was thinking maybe the pads are just kind of like unbiased, and it's just too much braking power in the front. So my easy solution to that was just put the same type of pads front and back. So I know that the pads are, you know, they're friends. They're together. They should have the same braking force all around. So I already put the EBC yellows in the back, and I'll try to put it in here. You can still kind of see it in this, but hopefully this comes through. something that I learned that it left a scar on the pad was basically when you're done with a run, don't put the e-brake up. That might make sense to some people, but after, you know, a 15-minute session on there, just had a habit, I'd come, I'd park, I'd put the e-brake up, and it basically left an imprint in there. And Matt kept telling me, don't do that, and it's just habit. I ended up doing it, I think I stopped doing it, I did it, stopped doing it. Moral of the story, don't do it. I basically just kind of scraped that gently off with a pry bar ever so gently, and then took a wire brush and some brake cleaning, it came right off, and it's now nice and smooth. So hopefully that's gonna be okay, and now I'm gonna change the front wheel woods out with my EBC yellows for them. All right, so for those that are wondering maybe about this kit, it's pretty easy to take the pads out. So you just kind of pull this up, and you'll see that it unclamps there. Slide this out. And depending, you can either get these out by hand sometimes, or it's much easier with two hands. I'm gonna try to film this for you. Use a scribe or just something, maybe a flathead, and just kind of pry up and out. I'll be able to get that one hand, yep. So there's one pad. Kind of come in it from the other angle. There's the other pad. All right, so now you probably can't slide the pads just in, so you're gonna kill me for this, but I grab like an AN wrench. It's just aluminum, so it's not gonna hurt the rotor or anything. I gently just stick it in there, and I pry against it, and the piston, if you can tell, that one went right in. They go in pretty easily. I do that on both sides, just ever so gently. There's probably a tool for this, but it allows me to get the pads in. All right, so instead of putting grease on the back of these, EBC comes with these little 3M, yep, it's 3M trademarked, little like rubber pad. So what it does tell you is to basically lay it on top of the pad, and it's a little too long. If you see, I've already cut this one. If I lay it over it, it kind of sticks past it. So I just kind of stuck it past it, laid it on it, cut with some scissors and put it in there, and then I'm gonna install them. That's, I guess, to stop the squealing is what it says. All right, so that's gonna wrap this video up. So as far as the Maxpeeding rod short throw shifter, it worked perfectly for my buddy Matt. He used it all day at the drift cross, which was in my previous video if you saw that. He used it there all event and it worked out great. If you did notice, we had to chop that lug off, and it wasn't at fault of the shifter. When you make the shifter as short of a throw as we did, which was the max as short as it can be, it basically lowers the shifter down, and it essentially bumped in his exhaust. And he's got a stock exhaust in the car that comes with that EF sedan. So keep that in mind, that if you're gonna buy it and run that, if you go that low, you might have to do some modifications to make it clear your exhaust. But again, you don't have to necessarily go that low. And for the price point, I don't know if you can necessarily beat, you know, the quality and everything that it is. Now, as far as my brakes, I've got about 100 miles on these EBC yellows, and immediately they already do feel better than what I've had in the car. A much more, I don't want to say a firmer pedal, but as I push the pedal a little bit, it definitely I could feel it bite that much sooner than it did before. So I'm super thrilled about that. I can't wait to actually put a little miles and just kind of break it in and see what it does. But before I go to the track event, which is 14 May again, I think I'm still gonna pull the booster. In the service manual, it tells you distance from like the end of the studs to the front of the actual little joint that actually attaches the brake pedal. From the floor to the brake pedal is also another measurement. Mine was off, I adjusted it, and now, you know, I could see that I actually pulled some of the rod out of the booster itself that goes into the, you know, the master. So I just kind of maybe want to adjust that just to really ensure that when I go to the track, if I'm unsatisfied of any sorts, I know everything is in spec and everything is good, and it is what it is, and I might just be looking for more out of the braking system than what I have. But I have a feeling these EBCLs are definitely going to help drastically. So my time I'm shooting for, I think my best lap time I have to look again was a 1:45. I'm just trying to break into the 1:30s. So I don't think 5 seconds, I know 5 seconds is a lot, but I think just, you know, the confidence in the brakes are going to allow me to just dive a little bit deeper into the turns, you know, brake later and so forth. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully that all works out. Maybe if you can see it, I don't know if the camera's viewing it or not, but there's side skirts on the car. That will be the next video that's coming up. I know it's not a little kind of a short video, but I just wanted to get this out to you. I'm not trying to do any more necessarily pumping them out faster, but as I do things, I'm trying to just keep up with videos, as opposed to usually I'd do a video and I'd be behind a day or two. So these side skirts have just been finished. That video will come out for this again. I appreciate everybody for following that has, or any new subscribers. I know I say this every time, but I'm just super happy that my car has motivated other people to, you know, continue their builds or just things they want to do to it. Because essentially that's what YouTube sort of did for me, you know, following other people's builds on here, just kind of made me get off my butt and finish my car. Because again, I've had this thing for a hot minute. It sat in the storage unit, sat in my house, and I would tweak with it here and there. And I was just like, one day I was like, I need to just get this thing done. I miss driving it. It is what it is. So I'm hoping you know, I continue to do that for other people, and I'm happy that I've already done it for a bunch of people that have messaged me and everything else. So again, if anybody's got any questions, comments, concerns as usual, put it in the comments below, message me on Instagram, whatever avenue you can find me to message me on, and stay tuned for the next video.